Good afternoon and welcome to Life on the Light Side. Coming to you today from the log cabin. It's upstairs where I work. We call it the loft, and here's where we have books and puzzles and games and stuff like that for our campers. So I hope you're ready to take some time, sit down. I'm so excited. I got to do this relatively early. The phones were kind of quiet. Started off this morning instead, and who knows what's going to happen in the next time that we are as we do the video today. But if you've never tuned in to Life on the Light Side before, this is how to stay light even if you're feeling down. So it's about the importance of staying positive even if there's anything negative going on, even if you don't feel it. So I hope that you will enjoy our time together and and that you'll get something out of it. If you like it, you can go to YouTube and type in Life on the Light Side. That's Lite side. And you will be able to see all of our videos on YouTube. Okay, so we're going to start today, as we typically do, with the National Day calendar. And I would like to begin with today is, first of all, it's Star Wars Day because it's May the 4th. So it means May the 4th be with you. How's that for fun? You know what that means? Tomorrow is. And you know what? I don't recall. I peeked at tomorrow's National Day calendar. I don't remember seeing it. But tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo. So that's a little heads up that we're going to be wanting to think about having something Mexican maybe to eat. Sound like a good idea? Always sounds like a good idea to me. And when I think I didn't eat any real Mexican food, um, well, probably started when I was like over 30 years old, and that was very little. There was one restaurant up by stores called Mexican Village, and even that was kind of gringo Tex-Mex. So I love that Mexican food, and I'm so glad it got to be popular. And I do like La Boca in Middletown, and I particularly like the Cuckoo's Nest uh, back down in Old Saybrook. Go figure. Cuckoo's Nest sound like it was made for me? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so uh, that's tomorrow. Well, I'm already salivating, even though I had a little too much lunch. So it's National Teacher Appreciation Day. And I don't think we appreciate our teachers enough. My daughter in law is a teacher, and what a job she does. She works with special ed and stuff, and she is magnificent, but she's not a typical teacher anymore. Now she's more like a teacher of teachers. So I say today, April, and have a happy Teacher's Day because I know all the lives that she has touched and blessed. So if you have younger kids, you might want to show, attention, appreciation to their teachers today and let them know how valued they are. It is also National Bird Day. Well, where would we be without birds? But while we're thinking about birds and their diet and what they do, we want to remember to be very careful about the birds and the bees and other wonderful creatures that we share the planet with, to be very careful where we put pesticides because that's their diet, okay? That's their main diet. And like for everybody that hates bats, well, bats eat tons of mosquitoes and possums eat bunches and bunches of ticks. They love them ticks. So think about these things whenever that we are one in an ecosphere. So whereas we're thinking about the birds and love the birds And I love hearing the birds in the morning. They're all fluttering out in the around the campground, and I can hear them. And I swear, you listen to them for a while, and you can hear them actually saying stuff. Um, okay, it is National Orange Juice Day, and there are two top producers of orange juice on the planet. And I'll bet you probably can't guess which ones they are. One country is Brazil, and the other country is the United States. And the United States is number one in consumption of orange juice. We do love our orange juice. And now I've got a very special day that we're going to be celebrating, and that is Renewal Day. Today is a day when we think about what we the direction we're going in our life, whether we like it or not, and what we might want to change about our life. Renewal Day is a great time to renew dreams and visions. Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job and go do something else, but you can begin to take steps forward toward a new career. You know, it's very true what they said, time stops for no man or no woman unless you're sitting in the dentist chair. Then it just seems to be there forever, at least to me anyway. So, what dreams do you want to renew, or do you want to start off all fresh, all together in a whole new vein? This is the day to think on those things. Okay, it's about new beginnings, and I hope you will take some time. You got time today to think about what new beginnings you'd like to make in your life. Another important day today is it is foster care day. We don't often think about that. See, that's that one thing. Sometimes like we'll read a story or we'll hear something or read an article and we'll make a decision about things that we really don't know a lot about. So, uh, whether you are aware of it or not, there are 400,000 children in foster care. And some are in good foster care and some are in challenging situations. And I know the one thing, I'm not ready to take on a foster child, believe me, at 76 ish, got another month and 2 months to go, but I'm not thinking about it. But I can support agencies that do help foster children and that need good and loving and kind families. And so one thing we absolutely can do to stay on the light side is to hold visions and prayers that each child will be in a home where there is love and where there is caring, and that there are parents who are excellent role models. There is such a need for that today. Okay, and so, what it is one child enters foster care every 2 minutes. Can you believe that? One child entering foster care every 2 minutes. But if we think about it, if we think about praying for them, I think we need to pray for their parents too, because not all kids are given to foster care because the parents don't want to care for them. Sometimes they're incapable for caring for them. So we want to look at how we can work to help these situations. We look to the causes. Why can't parents parent their children, and what went wrong, and how can safe and happy homes and families be found, and how can we is there a way to create happy grounded families, even when we're in a state of disarray. And that was the I didn't pick them all. I just picked some because if not, you know what I do. I just go on little side trips and we never get out of here when I put them all on here. But I did want to share the recipe for today because it kind of freaked me out. It was apple butter meatball subs. I guess you might want to try it. Called for a pound of frozen meatballs, cooked, I'm sure, and it called for a jar of apple butter and a jar of um, chili sauce and provolone cheese and sub sandwich, sub rolls, hero rolls. So if you think that sounds interesting, you can go to National Day Calendar, look up the recipe for today, and give it a shot, and let me know how that worked out for you. Could be delicious. Could be. Well, we're talking about delicious. I promised to you that today we would talk a little bit about umami. Now, a lot of people don't know what umami is. The easiest way of putting it is the what the definition for umami is. It's Asian and it means deliciousness. It is that thing that makes something extra tasty. You know that thing that says, "What does it taste like?" Tastes like more. That's what our lunch was today. It tasted like more, and it was very full of umami. And you go, well, where does umami come from, and how do you get it? So the definition of umami is it is a category of taste. For many years, they only identified four parts of our taste buds, which was bitter, sour, sweet, and salty. And now we have umami, and they actually identify taste buds that are sensitive to umami. Um, it is It's okay, it corresponds to the flavor of glutamates, especially like MSG. No. Now, MSG was given a bad rap because very few people are sensitive to it and usually in large amounts. MSG is often used in Asian cooking, and which isn't surprising because some of the derivatives of umami are soybeans and mushrooms, and they use that they use the soybean a lot in things like soy sauce. Soy sauce is a form of umami, and one person defined it is that it hits the back of your throat and leaves you craving more. That was our lunch experience today, and I sit here with this big old belly going, you're not gonna lose weight that way, sweetie. But it was so wonderful. What we had was penne pasta with a homemade pesto. And I have to tell you, that was an adventure and a half last night. Now, sometimes we can take life a lot lighter if instead of saying it was a horrible challenge, we say it was quite the adventure. Now, to make your own homemade pesto, you really need to have a food processor. Now, when I say food processor, I don't mean a blender or even a Vitamix. I have a Vitamix, which is the best for so many things, not for pesto, okay? And because it needs that big, flat, wide open space to process it, I've used the food processor before, it makes pesto great. I've tried more than once to use my Vitamix, and I thought I had it knocked. I thought I'd figured it out, the secret, because what would happen is even with the power of the Vitamix, if I tried to get it to mix everything, oh my gosh, it'd start to smell burny, Oh, can't do that. That's not good for the Vitamix. So I have a dry container as well as a wet container. So I said, I'll bet if I start with the dry container, I'll have it not. So I beautifully, beautifully grated the Parmesan cheese. Now, for what it's worth, Parmesan is an excellent source of umami. And if you get a really good one, oh yeah, and I can't pronounce the name. It's like Raggio Pecorino or something. That is, look in the grocery store for something that kind of is like that. And it is just, you eat it and it is a full, it is that nut because you start off with a chunk. And so you start off, that's your base. And so you grate that first. And it grated beautifully. And then you add to that garlic, and if you were doing actual pesto, you would use pine nuts. Pine nuts are extremely expensive, and walnuts work just as well. So then you mix the walnuts with, this is called winter pesto, by the way. It's not like typical pesto. So then you put the I put in the garlic and the walnuts into the batter mix, and that's where it got all gummed down into the corners and I couldn't get it out. And it was just, as I say, it was quite the adventure, very interesting. So then I tried to put it all into my regular uh, Vitamix container, and that did not help at all. And so then I have a tiny, a little KitchenAid that my son gave me. It went with my immersion blender, and you stack it together. And well, that worked a little better. But the bottom line is, if you're going to make pesto, you need to have a regular food processor, which will do wonderful. If you don't have one, you don't want one, but you sure would like to make pesto, borrow one, borrow a food processor. You can do this. So in the end, it came out pretty good. I had it for supper last night, and I had leftovers for breakfast this morning, just a little bit of leftovers. And then we had it for lunch, and we made enough so if my brother-in-law came, he could join us. Except that it didn't make it because it was so umami filled. We just had to have more, and we ate the whole thing. Now my sister and I are going around going, "Oh my God, what were we thinking?" Okay, big clue for you. Okay, here's a tip that we should have observed right away. Well, a few tips on kind of controlling the way you eat. Number one, don't wait till it's too late. If you wait till it's too late to control. Your hunger is going to be out of control and it's going to drive you instead of you driving it. So don't ever wait too long to eat. The other thing is what I should have done was made the dish and then immediately taken anything, take out what we were going to eat and put the rest in a container and put it in the refrigerator because that way um, we would not have been tempted to go back. We did not need it. We did not really want it, but that deliciousness, that umami on our tongues from the garlic and parmesan and nuts. Oh, excuse me. It's still working on me. Um, it was wonderful. Just wonderful. Okay. So I want to talk to you about different kinds of umami, which the things that contain umami are parmesan, seaweed, miso, mushrooms, soy sauce, tomato paste, and things that are caramelized. It is a combination of the interaction of glutenates with ribonucleic. I can't. It's both my handwriting and the word. I'm not going to get it out. You can look it up online. Ribonucleotides. Ribonucleotides. How do you like that? Learned a new word. I didn't know. I got to find a way to use it in 3 sentences before the end of the day so I don't forget it. So a lot of umami comes from really cooking things down to get an essence. If you think about onions, And you can fry onions, and you know how like onions just raw have, if you like onions, they have pretty good flavor for certain things. To draw the umami, what you do is you caramelize them, which means you saute them in some butter and then turn it down rather low and let it cook until everything gets a little dark brown and is all kind of gets a little bit mushy. Oh, it's very good. And if you want to make really, really good French onion soup, that's how it starts. The umami that happens. If you want to make a stock, like if you want to make, it's a very good idea to make stock because the stock you make, you know what's in it, especially if you like to use organic. And so you take your carrots and onions and celery like that, and you do what's called mirepoix. It's celery, onions, and carrots that are rough chopped. Toss them with a little oil and put them in the oven until they start to shrink down and get brown and caramelize. That's what you put in your. Oh my goodness, I have such an itchy nose. My mom always used to say, that means I'm going to have a fight or kiss a fool. I don't want to have a fight, so kisses to everybody, just in case there's a fool out there. So anyway, if you're going to make stock, you take this browned combination. You don't brown it by heat, you brown it by heat and time. It's done rather slowly in the oven. So you put that into your soup pot, stock pot if you're going to make a whole lot. And then you add a little water to the bottom of the pan to get up all that caramelized goodness. Put that in the pan, and that will start your stock that will be rich and delicious. So you have developed a lot of umami. If you can't tell you what, I have a secret for when I want to bring umami out of something. Sometimes I'll make like a soup, and I will like we make what's called pink soup in my family. It's kind of silly, and take um, tomatoes and broth, like canned tomatoes and broth and onions and celery and stuff. And it makes this, if the longer you cook it, the more you cook it down, the more umami develops. But sometimes it just doesn't seem to have it. So if you're making something and it doesn't seem to have that umami, you've got to find something to put in that will give that deliciousness. Tomato paste is one thing. So you just add some tomato paste and you're going to be good to go. Um, or you can add soy sauce or aminos. Another good source of umami is brewer's yeast because it's got such a flavor. It's wonderful. And brewer's yeast, which it's also called nutritional yeast. It doesn't have a lot to do with brewing these days at all, but if you have the brewers or nutritional yeast, and you can take that and put it in a processor or whatever with some pecans, and you just kind of add a little bit of oil and a little bit more, and you get a crumble. That is called vegan parmesan. Umami is also what it creates. Okay. So we talked about how that came together. Oh, I was going to say that I always make sure I have some umami at hand. So I've got amino acids, I've got the brewer's yeast or the nutritional yeast, I've got soy sauce, and I take a little can of tomato paste, which is, you just want to lick it. You just want to, So after you take out like teaspoon size or tablespoon size lumps, put them on a piece of wax paper and put it in the freezer. And when they freeze, you take them off the wax paper and put them in a container, airtight container, and seal it and put it back in the freezer. So if you're making a soup or a sauce or something, and it just needs some umami, reach into the freezer, grab it out, and toss it into your dish. And you'll probably find another thing that works well to develop, not on its own, to develop umami is vinegar. So when you mix like some tomato paste and vinegar, that deepens that umami flavor. So uh, there's just a lot you can do. Same thing I want like with butter. Now butter of its own doesn't necessarily have that much umami flavor, but if you brown it, you just start to get it brown when the curds start to turn brown, not black, brown. Um, that is umami, and you can put that on pasta. You can put it on so many things. It's really good. Toss it together with some raviolis or whatever, and uh, that is very, very flavorful. So, and by the way, that is called a Bernois. Oh, fancy name. And if it is not browned, it is melted and cooked a little bit. That is called beurre blanc. So beurre blanc means white butter, and beurre noir means brown butter. Noir means black. So, but you don't want it black. Okay. Learn something new every day. I hope that I hope that you got a little something out of it, and even if you already know it, because there's so many things we already know, but we put them in our subconscious file somewhere, and we forget they're there. So maybe this has stimulated some thoughts for you, and how you're going to cook and everything. And that brings me to our next thought I wanted to share about my asparagus soup. I made asparagus soup yesterday, and one of my brother-in-law's friends brought some asparagus from his garden, and he gave it to them as a gift. And so my sister said, "Do you want some asparagus?" And I looked at it, but it wasn't what I was accustomed to seeing, because like there's domestic and imported, or stuff like this, stuff you grow your own and stuff. They said, well, I did not know this until I explored it a little bit. The asparagus he gave us was homegrown. It was lovely, but it was different. It wasn't that greeny green that we get accustomed to. It was kind of a almost looking rhubarby. It was thicker and not thin and dark green. So I said, I think I'd like to try to make some asparagus soup. So I went online and I hunted various recipes, and I tried to blend the recipes that I found with the ingredients that I happen to have. I don't know when the last time I went to the grocery store was. I really don't. What I'm trying to do is find clever ways to utilize everything I have for as long as I can before I have to go to the grocery store. Don't like to go to the grocery store anymore. I used to, but life gets real busy, and it's like I could be doing something else. Or else I go crazy and buy everything and can't use it in time. Not a good move. You always have to remember, when you go to the grocery store and you bring a bunch of stuff home, you have to cook what's going to spoil first. Okay? And do you know where I learned that? I learned that when I went on a tour of the Croaker, which was at that time docked in New London. This was when my boys were about 7 and 8. My daughter was probably 4 or 5. Well, the Croaker was one of the very first submarines that the military used. I got to tell you something, it creeped me out. It was so small, it was so tiny. And I have to hand it to the military, the Navy guys who serve on submarines, especially back then. It was horrible because they would sleep on top of torpedoes. I don't know how well I'd sleep knowing I was sleeping on a torpedo, just saying. And they would start out with the shower stall full of produce, and nobody took a shower until the produce was gone. Then they went to the canned goods they had and everything. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? But that's where I got the lesson. You got to cook the produce first. The only problem is sometimes I don't feel like cooking a produce first, so that gets me in trouble. I am always so happy when I don't have to throw away food. You know, when you're throwing away food, it's just like flushing money down the toilet. I don't want to do that. I don't think you do either. Well, I got to tell you, I found a great recipe. I tweaked it. What does Tim Gunn say? Make it work. So this recipe had asparagus, it had garlic, it had some olive oil, it had some onion, oh, scallions. I used scallions because that's what I had, and asparagus, and it called for Yukon Gold potatoes, but I didn't have any of those. I had white potatoes, so I used those, and peas. And that recipe didn't have peas in it, but some of the other asparagus soup recipes I read had peas in it, and I did have peas that I wanted to get rid of. I wanted to utilize. So they were frozen peas. So it came out to be so delicious. And it took some vegetarian bacon, and we cooked that up and crumbled it up and put it on the top and had it with crusty ciabatta bread. That's another thing. I get my ciabatta bread very often at the grocery store in the day old rack. I'm going to tell you something. You take it home, cut it into chunks, put it in a Ziploc freezer bag, and when you're ready, it's ready. And you take it out. I took the bread out of the freezer, wrapped it in foil, and put it in the oven where it got delightfully crispy on the outside and soft and tender and wonderful on the inside. So that was a great time. Sometimes the best recipes come not from what you go to buy to make the recipe, but when you make it work, like Tim Gunn says. Well, our time is up. I hope you enjoyed it. And wouldn't it be nice if tomorrow we get to do the same time? Never know. All depends on those phone calls. So until then, have a bright, beautiful, better than average day, and may God bless you. Good. I will see you, Lord willing, tomorrow. Bye. I didn't. It's not ending. Lord, it's not ending. I'm